A happy late Valentine's Day, everybody, or as I call it, Slaaneshmas. Praise Our Lady of Torture and BDSM, Slaanesh, for she is great, and is a she, alright? I don't care what people say. To me, Slaanesh is female. Take that, suppressed bisexuality. But no, seriously. Happy Slaaneshmas, one and all. This will be a lore video. First time I'll be doing a lore video about Warhammer. Really, the first time I've done a lore video in a while. And it's gonna be kind of like a brief summary of what Slaanesh is, how it works, and how there's real world implications for Slaanesh. Yeah, so let's get into it. So Slaanesh is the dominatrix BDSM goddess of tits and wine and red room debauchery throughout the Warhammer multiverse, because I'll call it the multiverse. She, in 40k, was literally murder fucked by a massive galaxy-wide orgy party of space elves who, with their magic BDSM powers, brought birthed Slaanesh in a massive, big bang of psychic energy across space and time. That Slaanesh was born. And it consumed all the other gods and consumed the vast majority of the space elves, and has been plaguing everything good in society ever since. I mean, the extent of Slaanesh, wherever there is high-class civilization of any kind, whether it be some medieval Age of Sigmar, Imperial City, or some space elf debaucherous BDSM cult in the space webway, or wherever there's high class and there's high enough where people can live and enjoy life, Slaanesh will be there, slithering in your tongue non-consensually and whispering its whispers into your ears. Here's the thing with Slaanesh. Its overall goals is to overthrow all decency and all sense of order in society, and for all civilization to collapse into a massive orgy party of debauchery and red room. Let's just put it this way. Nothing but necrophiliac orgies, bestiality, all of it across the multiverse. That's how the Beastmen were probably spawned. Yeah, a few humans probably got high off Slaanesh fumes and went and fucked a bunch of goats and created the Beastmen from Warhammer Fantasy. Probably. That's my fan fiction. But no, Slaanesh literally wants to destroy all forms of decency. I shouldn't say decency, but all sense of properness, what is good, and once again, Slaanesh, if the multiverse of Warhammer had good therapists and followed the teachings of Buddha or Jesus Christ or whatever spiritual middle way mentor like the Buddha, and saw balance between ecstasy and...
For Loco, you make my dreams come true!
Say my name, bitch!
For Loco! Oh, don't stop! Don't stop! Make tonight the night. Make it a Four Loco night.
Hedonism and asceticism, then yeah, the Warhammer universe wouldn't be so fucked up. The whole point that Slaanesh is, the thing that promotes Slaaneshmas, that creates Slaanesh, is to pass. Suppressing everything to an extent you just become the most debased, debauched person in general. Catholic priest, girl defined. The point is, the more people suppress their emotions and their sexuality, their desires, their cravings, the more they just become more debased and debauched. And Slaanesh feeds off that. Or you can have nothing to do all day except for go to your local jerk fest, the local art pavilion, and the local space elf city. And either way, I think leads to Slaanesh. Slaanesh is a goddess that feeds off of hedonism, pleasure for pleasure's sake. And it's not just sex, it's also drinking, ecstasy, drugs, wanting to be perfect, obsession. These things fuel Slaanesh as well. Pleasure and passions, when not guided and only exist for their own obsessive mania, fuel Slaanesh. So you could get a bunch of kids with ADHD, give them a shit ton of Ritalin and acid, and tell them to paint pictures, and you could probably open up a portal to Slaanesh's realm. And Slaanesh's realm in both 40k and fantasy is this realm of pure ecstasy delight. It's like a place of never-ending wine, demon prostitutes. It's just it's a freaking acid trip. It's like the more you ascend the layers, which is very similar to Dante's Inferno, with rings of hell filled with all sorts of different kinds of pleasure. And like there's pleasures of the flesh, pleasures of the mind, pleasures of ecstasy. And the more you get closer and closer to Slaanesh's throne, the more and more enticing these things become. Some realms of Slaanesh are literally nothing but you drink yourself on the best wine possible and wind up eating yourself to death. That's just how the realm of Slaanesh works. And the best way to battle Slaanesh is really what the Space Eldar practice, which is I don't want to say asceticism, but balance. Those who best resist Slaanesh would probably be like deities like the Buddha or Jesus Christ, or sages who practice a middle way between unbridled passions and unbridled asceticism. So yeah, and that's probably the reason why the Imperium is one of Slaanesh's favorite joy toys. People are so coked up on drugs and the high classes of the Imperium and the Sigmar's empire in Age of Sigmar and Fantasy. These nations that have such upper castes and have entire worlds dedicated to pleasure and retreats and these planets, these havens for nobles, they just do the most debased, debauched Tom Cruise Red Room shit you can think of. And these Slaanesh feeds off these like higher hidden societies, these secret societies. Slaanesh also offers warriors, esoteric philosophers, mages, access to its forbidden arts. There's also like a Zeech element to Slaanesh with all sorts of forbidden magic and ecstasy and perfection of their craft that they're willing to sell their souls to Slaanesh. That's another thing that Slaanesh often draws people in with, the obsession with perfection. The hubris is just as much a path of Slaanesh as unbridled like lust is. And once again, I keep going back to this. The best way... Here's what I would say if you're going to roleplay Slaanesh. If you're going to run a D&D game in Warhammer 40k or whatever Warhammer setting, Fantasy World, whatever, play the role. If you're going to make Slaanesh your main antagonist, make Slaanesh into this cult, this hidden society, this upper caste society, this Illuminati sort of feel to it that's trying to infiltrate every aspect of the Imperial government and open up a gateway to the frickin' warp and unleash nothing but demonettes and BDSM hell magic upon the society. They're infiltrating, they're trying to overthrow all civility. And you can play as an Inquisitor, and you're tempted by the powers and the forbidden knowledge of Slaanesh, and you're doing everything in your power to stay true to your Imperial creed and your loyalty to the Imperium, or the God Emperor Sigmar, whatever, and you're trying to overcome these dark demons literally whispering in your ear to join the debauchery. You know, it's sort of like a freaking film noir sort of feel to it, like a gothic horror sort of aspect. You're hunting down these demons. You're trying to stop these cultists from unleashing a second eye of terror in the heart of the Imperium. Or you could play as Chaos Worshippers and how you're trying to like spread your debauchery. You could be like an Emperor's Children, which are Space Marines that are just sold their every ounce of their sandy Slaanesh, and they literally are the most debased, debauched creatures you can think of. Seriously, don't look up Slaanesh Space Marines on the wiki. It's pretty fucked up. I would say if you're going to play a Chaos Worshipper that worships Slaanesh, do it as like you're trying to spread chaos and anarchy and pure excess across an orderly, saintly, church-going planet or society. Or you can play as the Inquisitor who's trying to keep your sanity intact and you're trying to hunt down these cultists and prevent them from unleashing a galaxy-wide apocalypse. Other things you should consider about Slaanesh: its lure of dark technology, its lure of perfection, its lure of hubris and pride and obsession. These are all things you can incorporate into your D&D games if you're doing Warhammer. But yeah, back to the spiritual side and the real-life ramifications of Slaanesh in the real world. Slaanesh, when you're looking at this from a psychological perspective, which is what I'll be doing this from / spiritual perspective, Slaanesh in a perfect world, in a society that wasn't fucked up, probably more like our world than the world of 40K, although we're getting close to the world of 40K every day. Slaanesh would probably be like Aphrodite, a goddess of love, joy, and art, in the positive aspect, not the negative aspect. Giggity. There's a balance between hedonism and asceticism, and it's different for each person, but living a life of intent is better than living a life of pure desire or a life of pure expectation. Pure expectation, like what you see in the imperial church, is you are expected to blindly follow and obey and sacrifice everything that makes you you in the service of those who claim to speak for the God, Bone Daddy, Space Jesus, Heavy Metal Space Jesus, which ramifications in real life as well, Catholic Church. But there's also, and there's that. You see a lot of this pure impurity culture. You see a lot of this in like online dumbasses like Girl Define and or Ascension Presents, who are probably most likely fucking everything they see, and like they get off to that kind of thing. They probably get off to chastity belts, and they probably have their own debased, dark, fucked up desires, and they probably are keeping a lot of skeletons hidden behind closed doors. And their obsession with like purity makes them more disgusting and more self-righteous and more probably, yeah, you get that kind of asceticism, you get that kind of repression that just destroys you, that just either makes you so afraid of everything or turns you completely into some sociopathic nutjob. I've seen it, I've dealt with it. And you lose your sense of self, you lose your sense of pleasure, you lose your sense of identity, you lose your sense of what makes you you. But the other extreme is you're nothing but your desire, you're nothing but your cravings, and you just lose your sanity and your sense of self, and you just become a sense freak. And once again, there's a healthy amount of hedonism, especially when you're in your 20s. Like, you gotta experience life. You gotta get out of your system when you're young, within moderation, within healthy, controlled ways, yes. But the thing with Slaanesh, it's love and lust are two sides of the same coin, and the point about why Slaanesh is even a thing in Warhammer is because there's no balance. There's no balance, spiritual and emotional balance in the worlds of Warhammer. It's nothing but endless war and destruction, and there's little demons and hell spawn all around you, so the chances of finding a good therapist or a good spiritual mentor are probably pretty thin. You're probably going to wind up a slave for the Imperium, just popping out babies or working for the mines while the nobles have their jerk fest up in the cities above you and spawn demons into reality. Or you just wind up a slave to chaos. So once again, there's no balance in the world of Warhammer. There's no spiritual balance. So really what the answer to extreme hedonism and extreme asceticism is living a life of intent, discernment, that middle way between the two extremes. And we all make mistakes. We're all human. We all make fucking mistakes. The point is you should try and live as balanced life as possible. And I don't think a lot of people wind up having that sense of balance nowadays. I don't know. I think the answer is to find balance, live a life of intent, rather than live a life of expectation or a life of pure desire either. I think that's the answer you gotta look for. But yeah, Slaanesh is just a fascinating thing. If you're looking to like run D&D games and Warhammer, or you're just new to the hobby, look up the wiki. There's a lot of good lore. There's a lot of good books about Slaanesh. Read the Horus Heresy books and how such noble champions of justice and virtue fell into this very demonic sort of Luciferian sort of hellish dimension. It's just the books like Emperor's Children, the books about the Emperor's Children or Fulcrum are great books to see how Slaanesh works and how it taints people and how obsession with art and perfection leads to hell. It's a really good read. I would, and the other things I recommend about Slaanesh, don't get into Warhammer till you're ready for it. There's some really dark things in there that can fuck you for life, and you can wind up like me. Don't wind up like me. Don't wind up like me. Dear God, don't wind up like me. Well, till next time, folks. Stay sane, and have a very good Valentine's Day, and just go form a relationship. You know, go form some relationships and meet people and focus on the people you have in your life and appreciate their comfort. It's a lot more pleasant than mindlessly jumping around all over the place on Tinder. Spend time with people you love and care about. Thanks, folks. Stay sane. God bless.